Good afternoon. Welcome to the tea table. I am so happy you have joined me today. And we are celebrating a special day today. Yes, it seems that every week we have a holiday. Isn't it fun? Well, this Sunday is a special day, and it's Mother's Day. And I want to dedicate this tea talk to all of the mothers, and in the memory of my mother and my husband's mother. And what a beautiful day it is. One thing every one of us have in common in all of the human race, we have all had a mother or have a mother. You know, life is simple when you consider it on that level. We have more in common than we have differences. And I think we should focus on our common connection. Yes. Well, if you haven't gotten your tea yet, please pause and then get your tea, and I will be waiting for you. Well, today I have decided to use my lovely silver set that sits on my entryway tea table, and it has a coffee pot, a teapot, and a creamer and a sugar. Now, sometimes when I have a lot of guests, I will use my coffee pot for a different kind of tea. Sometimes children prefer maybe a peppermint tea or an herbal tea, and then I will use my other pot for the black brisk tea. So we can be creative, and we don't have to be stuck, and we can improvise, because we want our table to welcome all guests. And if someone brings a friend and we have more than we thought, we always want to be gracious and make room for that person. So I have chosen today a special cup. This cup my husband and I got on our honeymoon in Victoria, BC, and at that time it was such a special cup. It still is. It's gold and black, and it's Ainsley, and it was very precious to us and kind of the beginning of my collection of teacups. I didn't have very many then, and so I am going to now today, because we are using brisk black loose leaf tea, and I'll show you what I'm using. I'm using Queen Elizabeth Jubilee tea. And what happens is, when you open this tin, you see inside is that wonderful tea. So what I generally do is a teaspoon per cup and one for the pot. And it can get quite strong, and so if it starts getting a little too strong, then what you want to do is boil and add more hot water. That is what one of my professors, who was from England, he had us all come to his house as a final project at the University of Washington, and he served tea. This is very traditional, what professors do in England. And so when he served it, there were quite a few students, and then he would just add hot water to stir and maybe add a little more tea, and they call it keep the pot going. So in this case, I am going to put my cup down, because what I want to do is I want to use this. I want to use my strainer to make sure that I don't get any tea bags in the tea. Okay. Doesn't look it. They seem to float to the bottom now, more and more. And I'm going to get my little splash of milk. all the design and beauty in this cup is in the inside. From the outside, it just looks white, but you see it has all this lovely gold and black filigree. Let's have our tea. Oh my goodness, that is good. That is Queen Elizabeth Jubilee tea from England. Well, of course, the tea originates somewhere else, probably India or in the hot, warm climates. So I'm going to put my tea here on a little silver thing, and I want to show you something I brought along. This is just a little baby, really small teapot. It might look big on the camera, but it is not more than 4.5 inches high. And this is called Indian Tree. This is a very popular Victorian design that what I'm discovering is Colport did it, of course, but all of the China companies, Johnson Brothers, everyone has this is the saucer. And they call it Indian Tree, but do you know, I researched it, and it's really from the Chinese design. So it is kind of a design that combines everything. And this was so popular, and it has different, now this has a green rim, which is very, very different. And then this has a filigree around. So keep your eye out for that, because just a fun to collect even a few little pieces is very, very nice. I'm going to put that there. Well, we are going to celebrate Mother's Day, but also there's another special holiday that happened this week. And it was on Thursday, the 5th of May, and it is called National Day of Prayer. And probably most of you knew about that or participated. And this National Day of Prayer goes way back to George Washington, who had a National Day of Prayer. And then Abraham Lincoln had several National Day of Prayers during the Civil War. And then Franklin Delano Roosevelt had several during World War II. And so by the time Eisenhower was president in the 1950s, he said, we need to really establish this. So he made a declaration and a proclamation to have a National Day of Prayer. Well, then they hadn't really decided on a date, so 20 years later, Ronald Reagan, he put it through Congress that we would establish it as a national holiday, and it would be the first Thursday in May. And generally speaking, it's the most beautiful time of year for Olympia Capital, because I have been involved in the National Day of Prayer for many years. A dear friend of mine, Kathy Colley, and I, way back in the 1990s, with our pastor Cecil Thompson, were able to establish a statewide gathering at our Capitol Rotunda. And we had this for many years. And the state capital of Washington State is gorgeous. It is a replica of Washington, D.C., but it has all been redone within the last 30 to 40 years. And it has 42 pieces of Tiffany glass and lamps. And it was the last great thing Tiffany did, because it was 1929, right before the Depression, that the Capitol was finished. It was started way back in the 1800s, but they ran into financial issues and had to stop. And so our Capitol is considered the last great building built in the lower 48 before the Great Depression. And after the Depression, they never were able to build buildings like this. Our Capitol has 3 different kinds of marble. We have German marble, we have Italian marble, and we also have marble from our own state. And it is gorgeous. It has been so well kept. And if you ever come to Washington State and you haven't seen the Capitol, have a tour, because I've been on several tours because of having kids that worked there in the legislature. In high school, they were aides, and I went on tours, and every tour I learned something more. There's just a lot to know. Well, I also was thinking Mother's Day goes so beautifully with National Day of Prayer. Because what mother is there that doesn't pray? A mother automatically prays. She prays from her heart, because that new baby, that child that is given, so precious and requires so much care. And there is an instinct within motherhood that is so strong. And it's seen in all of nature. They always say, don't get between a bear and her cubs, because God gave that instinct, because that little child needs complete protection, love, and care for the first 5 years of its life, and then onward. And it never really ends, does it? Well, I brought a beautiful picture of what I think is, it's probably a Madonna, but it's so sweet. It could be a mother and child, and it is so sweet, so precious. And that love in the baby's little hand is so happy. Children need so much love. Children need so much grace and mercy. We all do. We all do. But children in particular, when they are being formed, need to know that they are unconditionally loved, because then they can understand that God unconditionally loves them. That we don't love people for their performance or for what they can do or what they can be. We love them because they are them. That is very important. Well, you know, I study history, as you know, and I started thinking two of the greatest mothers. And if you don't mind, I'm going to have a little more of my tea. I can think better in my historical ways when I have a teacup in my hand. That is so good. Two mothers that stand out to me in history, particularly. I am completing a degree in church history, but these men are significant to not just church history, but all of history. And the first one is Constantine. Yes, Constantine had a mother. Yes, her name was Helena. Now, Helena was a beautiful name. And you know, you always hear the Greeks. It's called the Hellenistic Society. Well, that's named after their beautiful Helen. Helen of Troy. That was said to be the most beautiful woman in all the world. And that's what the wars were fought over that are recorded in the Iliad and the Odyssey, because someone stole Helen of Troy and they had to get her back. Well, fast forward, that's pre-Christ. Greek period is it's BC, before Christ. Well, we're coming up to the Roman period then. So 325 is the Roman period. And we're still in the early church. It's only been 3 centuries since Christ, first 300 years. Well, it's a very dire situation for Christians. They are literally martyred. They are being thrown to the lions. And the main reason they were martyred was because as a Christian, you could only bow to Jesus and the true and living God. Remember the 10 Commandments? Thou shalt have no other God before thee. That's the first commandment. Well, in Rome, they had many, many, many gods, and they required their people to go and bow to the gods of Rome. and to bow to Caesar and call him a god. The Christians couldn't do this. And so when they didn't do it, many of the wicked, especially Nero, oh my, I don't even want to talk about what he did, but he was the emperor when the Apostle Paul was martyred. He was beheaded on the outside gates of Rome, and then Peter was crucified upside down. You know, all the disciples were martyrs, except one, John, who wrote the book of John and the book of Revelation. And he was the beloved John. But they tried to kill him, and they boiled him in oil. Somehow he survived, so they said, send him to the Isle of Patmos. And that's where he had his great vision. So you have a period of really dire circumstances. While Constantine's mother, this is 300, had become a Christian. But you had to be a secret Christian. Some people even think she was part Jewish. She was from Padal. She had been an innkeeper's daughter, and Constantine's father had married her. But she was not of the upper class, and so they kind of hid her. And so she was kind of in obscurity, but she was a Christian. And she was praying for her son Constantine to know the Lord. Well, the story goes, I'll give you a quick panorama 1 minute. He's in York because England is part of the Roman Empire at that time. And he's fighting a battle. And his father has died. And this is a very hopeless battle. It's very difficult. He doesn't have enough men. And this battle is going to determine who is going to be the next emperor. And so much is on the line. And so do you know what Constantine did? Because of course his mother had told him about Jesus. He prayed. And he said, God, if you will give me the battle, if you will help me win this battle, I will become a Christian. Wow. Now that's big. Because up to this time, it's illegal to be a Christian. So Constantine had a vision. God gave him a vision. And in the sky, he saw a cross. And then above the cross, he saw written in Latin, En hoc signo vinces. And that means, in this sign you conquer. So Constantine said, okay, and he made a cross. He went to battle. They won the battle. And he said, at that moment in time, we will all become Christian. And in those days, if you were a general, you had complete control over your men. They all bow down. They all become Christians. And he puts a cross on every one of their shields. And he says, we will never go into battle without a cross. And at that moment in time, they started winning. And they crowned him emperor of Rome, Constantine. And he became Constantine the Great. And Helena, his mother, was able to come forth and be like the Queen Mother with him. And he said, I make it legal for everyone to become a Christian. It's legal. And suddenly all the Christians could come out. And believe it or not, by that time, this is almost unbelievable statistic, but it's true. You can look it up. Christianity had started with Jesus and 12 disciples in Galilee, in Palestine, in Jerusalem. With it being so difficult to be a Christian, within 300 years, over 50% of the then Roman world had become Christians. Unbelievable. And so they come out. Constantine then has, in 325, that's when the edict is made. The Edict of Constantine, you're free and legal to be a Christian. And then what Constantine does is he also has a council, and it's called the famous Council of Nicaea. And at the Council of Nicaea, which is one of the first church councils, they all met, the Christian leaders, because they had these outward battles of persecution from Rome, but they also had inward battles, which were heresies and Christians that had fought with each other over theology, whether this is orthodox, whether this is biblical. And so then what they did was they went forth and I'm going to put my tea down, had the Council of Nicaea. And most of you probably go to church, and if you're in any Christian church, well, I don't care if it's Catholic, Lutheran, Episcopal, Anglican, Presbyterian, almost every church uses the Nicene Creed to this day. And it starts out, I believe in God, Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, in Jesus Christ. What it is, it's called a creed. And the reason they established the creed was to say, this is what we believe, to stop the heresy. Heresy means false belief. There were a lot of different false beliefs going on. There was something called Arianism, and then there was antinomianism, and I can't go into all of these, but maybe at another tea talk, if you want, let me know. I'll do a historical definition for you. But basically speaking, Helena became this incredible woman. In fact, she's sainted in the church. And Helena went to Jerusalem. She established a church where Jesus was born, Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And then she established the church where Jesus, on the ground where Jesus ascended. And then she went and she found part of the cross. And then she went forth and she went up and built another monastery. She spent her entire life establishing churches, building different places of worship, helping Christians worship. So this is a great mother. And Constantine attributed her prayers to him becoming a Christian. Think of it. I mean, that's one of the biggest things in history, that we went from darkness to light, illegal to legal. You know, you couldn't even imagine this. This was a dream come true to these Christians that had suffered so much. Well, the other mother comes another century later, 400. And that's the mother of St. Augustine, Monica. Monica, beautiful Monica, who loves God. And she has this son that is brilliant, but he's wayward. He's immoral. He has a concubine. He has a child out of wedlock. And it seems hopeless. He's not a believer. He doesn't want to believe. But she doesn't give up. She follows him around and she prays and prays and prays. Well, long story short, Augustine finds God. And he becomes the greatest man in all of church history. Everyone says this, next to the Apostle Paul and later Martin Luther. He writes the famous book, City of God, and that's when Rome is falling. He's there when Rome is falling, 400. Then he writes the Confessions of Augustine. And every church, every Christian claims him. He's a beautiful person. His biography is truly worth reading. Well, I did have a little treat for you, mothers. And it's a special piece of cake. And it is on with my sterling silver fork. And it's on a plate called Queen's Bouquet. I'm going to hold it. Queen's Bouquet. Because I make all of you mothers today queen for a day. And I encourage you to keep going, keep praying, and keep smiling. The most important thing we can have as mothers is joy, because the Bible says the joy of the Lord is our strength. It doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It doesn't come from perfect people. It comes from God and giving Him our situations, letting Him be in charge. I am wearing yellow today and gold, and it's for my mother. My mother had brown eyes. I actually have green eyes, but she loved yellow. And so I thought, I'm wearing this yellow shawl with gold and yellow earrings, yellow hat, and I did bring a special purse. I think black patent shoes and black patent purse go very nicely with this. And this is a shoulder purse that you put on your shoulder. And it's got such a beautiful clamp. If I can show you, it's got a jewel clamp. Do you see that? Let's see, I'll open it. And you open it like this. There's the jewel. I'm going to show you the jewel clamp. See? It's very, very fun. And it will hold a lipstick, a cell phone, and a wallet. That's all you need. We don't have to have these huge purses, I found out. Actually, it's fun to have a small one. Well, I am so happy you've joined me today. I pray you have a fabulous week, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. And you hear chatter in the background because I am a mother and my son has come home. So I'm going to go have a nice time with him. And I hope you get to see your children, mothers, this weekend. God bless. Remember, have a cup of tea and share one with someone else. And the rest will be history.